Welcome back to TIDES, where we explore the human side of transformation in an AI shaped world. I'm your host, Shweta Malhan, and today we are diving into something that's often talked about but rarely done well at scale: mentorship. In a world where knowledge walks out of the door daily and roles evolve faster than job descriptions can keep up, mentorship isn't just about guidance, it's about continuity, it's about connection and capability. And I'm very excited to have my guest today, Christy Pettit, who's the CEO and founder of Pollinate Networks and author of the Knowledge Transfer Index. Christy has built the world's leading mentorship platform, combining behavioral science and psychometric AI to match people in ways that are meaningful and measurable. From onboarding to leadership pipelines to cross generational knowledge sharing, she's helping organizations design ecosystems where insight flows and people thrive. Let's get into our conversation. Welcome to Tides, Christy.
Thank you so much. And what a wonderful intro. That was marvelous. I loved hearing that.
Thank you. I'm so excited to unpack this particular area with you because the world around us is changing and changing really fast. And before we dive into the product, I would really love to unpack your journey. What drew you to mentorship as a business and your purpose around it?
Such a good question. And the answer, even almost surprises me. It's nothing that I would have years ago thought, well, this is what I've set out to do with my career. I really wanted to do something that made a big impact on folks. I started out in healthcare and cut my teeth as an OD consultant, remastering processes and getting the wait times in the ER down and merging hospitals and doing all kinds of things. And then I worked for a while in learning and organizational development in a training company. And I became very obsessed with, because I was so focused on impact, with trying to put measures around, is anything actually changing as a result of people going to these training sessions? And one of the things that I saw again and again, whether I was doing a transformation project or we were doing a learning and development initiative, was that one-to-one or small group learning just had such a high yield. It
Hmm.
was so much more likely to change how people were behaving, to change the results that they were likely to get. And, if we think about the logic model to that, you get a great result because you have the right knowledge and the right inspiration and the right behaviors. And mentorship seemed to get at all of those things,
Hmm.
at the right time and in the right place. And bringing, we use the word mentorship. I think about, yes, it might be mentorship in the traditional sense, but it could also be just people sharing information in a deliberate way, like in a change situation where we're trying to make a big transformation in the organization. So, all of that is to say, the thing that I really felt deeply was that, wow, this is something that's getting an impact pretty much every time we do it. If we do it well,
Mhm.
we're getting an impact every time. You can do a really bang up training session and still, maybe have variable impact. You can do a process redesign and have variable impact. But this seemed to be something that, really over and over again got a lot of impact and positive change happening in organizations and for people.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. I like the simplicity of the definition around mentorship that you put together because sometimes we also get hung up with what is the purest definition of mentorship? What's the difference between mentorship and coaching
Oh my gosh, I've
and
had
things
that
like that?
conversation 8,000 times, Shmita. Like, seriously, we do get hung up on that. Yes.
That's right. And the world around us is changing and evolving so fast, especially with AI. So I'd love to know from your perspective, how do you see one, the evolution of mentorship, and why would you see mentorship more critical than ever before in today's evolving landscape?
It's a great question. One thing that amuses me or makes me really happy about mentorship is, it predates writing,
That's
right?
right.
It predates a lot of, our modern our modern world entirely, and it still is something that's valuable. So why is it valuable now? And it's a great question from the perspective of, some of our Gen Zs are not convinced that we have anything to tell them because they feel like we've screwed the world up. But at the end of the day, there's a number of things that indicate mentoring. One is we've got an epidemic of loneliness. So,
Hmm.
yeah, great. AI is fantastic. But at a certain point, that human to human connection does become important. The other thing that I think is there's no way to get around the fact that AI can teach us a lot. I'm fascinated by the fact that, a lot of the research coming out is showing that particularly for some of our younger generations, one of the big use cases is therapy, like self-therapying yourself by asking Chat GPT to weigh in on your problems. So there's all kinds of interesting perspective taking that people can do with AI. But when we think about, a human to human interaction, we're really carving out that humanity piece of it. So while AI may be able to reflect from its voluminous, seemingly infinite reach into the annals of humanity, having someone else walk alongside you or talk about, I have had that experience. I've actually had that experience in the real world. And here's what happened to me. And here is a pothole you should not step in. Maybe AI can conjure that, maybe not. But there
Hmm.
is a certain, and I think we'll see over the next little while that there's going to be delineations between the type of brainwaves that talking to an AI creates versus talking to a person. Both good, but
Yeah,
different. And I think that, the loneliness epidemic, the hybrid work, back to work, back and forth, all of the pieces around helping people become socialized toward what is a workplace, what is the culture we want, and so on. AI can be an assistant to
hmm,
that, but AI is not a person walking alongside you saying, "Hey, I'm in your corner," or "Let me tell you what happened to me," or "Here's a secret formula for how you might think about this problem." I think that uniquely human empathy piece, and I know the AI people are working on empathetic AIs as well,
hmm.
but having human empathy is definitely a different piece. And it's a different type of learning to have someone who you're not prompting. You
Yeah,
may bring a problem to a mentor. You may be able to sort of set the scene for a mentor, but the mentor doesn't require you to keep prompting them to keep the conversation going. They're able to also have that back and forth. So I do think there are still some things that humans can do with each other that they can't, that AI hasn't replicated yet.
that's so true. And you also make a great point that mentorship is not a new concept. Organizations have been on this journey for a very, very long time. But at the same time, I'm sure there are things that worked and things that haven't worked. So I'm really curious to know from your perspective, what are organizations still getting wrong about mentorship
Yeah.
and mentoring employees in their ecosystem?
The things that if I could summarize it, here's what I would say. We make it too complicated.
Mm,
It's so complicated to, put people together and so on. It's actually not very complicated to, especially given the fact that we have AI assists. And even pre AI, we had really smart algorithms that could help us. We just need to be aware of, the information we're sharing together. So I often hear organizations say, oh, that it just seems a bit messy and complicated. I don't think it actually is messy and complicated. I think it takes a certain commitment to the idea that we are going to build competence in people to be good mentors. I do
mm,
think that's something, Shveta, to your point that people get wrong sometimes is, people aren't born knowing how to do it. Some are, but not everybody. So I think that's one thing that, people tend to get wrong is, oh, do we have the right people to do the mentoring? Well, again, you can build those people pretty quickly.
mhm.
It's not as complicated as what we tend to make it sometimes. I also think that it tends to end up being very niche. So we have a mentorship program and it's over here at the side.
Hmm.
If I ran the zoo, if I ran the world, we'd be thinking about how we cross pollinate people in most of the things that we're doing, whether it's a merger, a change, a learning opportunity, a way of integrating new people into the organization. This whole ethos of knowledge sharing, movement of
Mm,
knowledge and support through the organization. I think that we tend to pigeonhole it over here as a, well, then there's the mentoring program.
mm,
Good. Good to have that. But do we need to keep it in its box, or can we say, you know what, pretty much, and some of the clients, that we're working with, they've got out of the box and
yeah,
they will tell you, like, pretty much any initiative that we're doing, we're cross-pollinating people somehow.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
putting people together somehow.
yeah. And putting the whole mentorship program in an organization in a box also makes employees who are participating in the program view it as something which is an add-on. So you have to carve out time to engage in a mentorship program, whether you are looking at it from a mentor perspective or a mentee perspective. So it's not like in the flow of my day to day. It's not like you have the culture of mentorship and it's happening organically. So this brings me to Pollinate and what you're doing. So tell me more about your product.
Yeah. So we have we've been working away on this, believe it or not, for the last 17 years. So that's something that we have been thinking a lot about, and again, this came out of my sort of exploration of um looking at what is making the most impact. So there's a couple of things that really have spurred our evolution and are part of our path that continue to inspire. And one is the idea of how closely can we replicate
Hmm.
a mentorship partnership that happens organically in the wild with no assistance.
Mm,
And I had one of those. I actually had one of those, which was a big impact on my life. And actually that mentor has just recently passed away, and it's been quite a
mhm,
change in my life to not know that she's available to me. But
mhm,
that idea of that really drives us at Pollinate is number one, how can we make it efficient and effective? And that's our OD roots
mhm,
coming through is how can we make it, a really good experience that makes a big impact? But then also, how do we create that sense of chemistry
mm,
in the matching and between the people so that we don't spend most of the time we're together trying to understand each other? We've been matched in such a way that it's the right time, the right place, the right person, similarities in some ways, interesting differences.
mhm,
And again, this is where the technology is such a benefit. Because,
mm,
hey, if it's you and me doing the matching and we have all the time in the world and we can get our Excel spreadsheets out or our post its or our Miro boards or whatever, that
mhm,
is one thing. But when we start to, as you said, doing it well at scale is the trick. It is the
mm,
challenge, is we don't want to always have these smaller groups. And when you start to think about the combinations, the numbers of combinations, which is really one of the things that drives our technology, is it's combinatorial mathematics. It's not 10 times 10 equals 100. It's each one of those 10 people could be matched with any one of those other 10 people. So it
mhm,
starts to get complicated quickly. And part of what we're trying to do, we did a branding exercise years ago, and it was wonderful because a client said to us, you know, you bring discipline to a mysterious process. And I
mm,
loved that because it felt like, yeah, that's really one of the things that we do really well, is make sure that, as I was saying, it's a good experience, it's effective, it's efficient, there's not a lot of extra work to be done, but it brings that, clarity, that good matching process, that ability for people to find each other who would not have found each other. I note that lots of speakers on mentorship are like, well, here's how you go out and find a mentor. Yeah, all power to you to go out and find a mentor on your own. But when we bring the organizational weight behind a mentorship program and we enable people to cross pollinate, part of the joy and the fun of it is, man, I would never have met that person without some kind of an assist. And that feels really good. It feels really, you know, part of the excitement, part of what engages me.
Yeah, yeah. And oh, you said you've been on this journey for a number of years, more than a decade, close to 2 decades almost.
I know.
How has your product journey changed? Because you make a really good point around the chemistry side of things, because both parties need to be invested in that relationship. Somebody should be willing to give knowledge and information, and the other side, somebody has to be ready to seek and absorb, right? Like, and it's not just about information, it's also about who you are receiving and taking information from. So tell me more about how has your product evolved over the
Mm,
years as technology became more and more sophisticated, and how are you using AI today in your product, because it can be such a great boost for the matching side of things.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'll précis my remarks about the product with, there's still good product program management you got to do.
Yeah.
You got to have buy-in. Somebody's got to, there's got to be a sense of sponsorship and that this is actually important for people to buy in and do things. But if we've covered off that piece, and one of the things that when I think about how the technology has changed, boy, it has been quite a journey because when we started, we thought we were, 17 years ago, we were the kings and queens of macros. Like we could make anything happen in Excel. But you
Mhm.
get into that combinatorial mathematics, it gets very complicated, more complicated than what you can do in a macro. So the post Excel, the post macro part of the journey. So the first few years, and I'm not sorry for them because it really forced us to model what we wanted.
Mhm.
Pardon me, but the first few years were really figuring out how is this going to work? What are the important things? What are the important data to gather? And that's where, in the first instances, we had a very basic sense of the psychology behind mentorship.
Mhm.
Pardon me. And as we grew in that, that's where we started to add the psychometric pieces. And so, step number one was really starting to design smart algorithms. And we partnered with Queen's University, who helped us to do that. And we created two types of algorithms. One we called the human rhythm, and that was where the machine would recommend here are the pairings that seem to be indicated. Here are your options for each person. And then the matching analyst, the matching expert would say, yep, I like that one, or no, try again. And then we also, over the last few years, say in the last 5 years, we've added to the human rhythm. And this is where we start to get into AI, what we call the OptoRhythm.
Mhm.
And the OptoRhythm optimizes the whole group. So again, this math seems pretty simple on the face of it, but it's actually not. The numbers, if you think about having, our largest program has, a number of thousand people, say 2,000 people that are getting matched. The numbers of combinations in that is pretty massive. There's the whole algorithmic piece of how do we make sure, and we call it the fairness index. How do we make sure that the bell curve isn't really spread out and I get a really good match and you don't?
Mhm.
Because I happen to be in the first 100 people and then we ran out of energy and gave everybody else whoever was available. So how do we make sure that there's a tight bell curve around a high average? So
Mhm.
that was accomplished in our work with Queens developing the OptoRhythm. The next phase, and we're very much in this phase, we're down the path in this phase. We have clients using this and it's a wild ride, is to really start to add more juice around that psychometric piece.
Mhm.
Who are you? How do we know? And what's the interplay, not only between my personality and your personality, but the goals that I have and your experiences, the work situation that I'm in and the work situation that you're in.
Mhm.
And so there's the personal piece, having the algorithm be able to learn more about each of us and make better recommendations as a result.
Mhm.
So it's both we call it psychographic because it's, the psychology piece, the psychometric piece, and also all these demographics around who are you and what are you trying to accomplish and what are you trying to
Mhm.
do at that individual level. And then being able to look at the population and get an understanding of, where are we trying to move this population? And so how do we program things or suggest to the cross-pollinate AI that we need to move the population? So for a really simple example, you get into a post-merger situation. Well, we all know from general research, from our research, that having people meet across legacy organizations can really pave the way to a smoother time in terms of people being able to get on board with the changes, understand, oh, this is why you folks do it this way. Just so you know, we do it this way. What's the middle ground that we can come up with? A goal like that is something that cross-pollinate AI is ideally suited to figure out. Lots of other pieces around being able to note and deal with exceptions. This person only speaks Polish. We don't want anybody who's sort of supervisor down to front line matched with more than 2 hours time zone difference. Like all of these different things, not only can we program, but now the AI is able to suggest.
Mm.
There's a lot more capability too, and this is maybe a bit more straightforward, but I think we're all in this business now, where we're all starting to gain the advantage of being able to have analysis of qualitative data. When you
Yeah.
think algorithmically, you're always trying to squish down to something that can be scored.
Hmm.
Now we have the ability, and for years and years, Shvita, in my career, mathematicians told me we just don't have the math to be able to analyze words.
Yeah.
So you can have them write out their goals and stuff, but an analyst is going to have to go through and code that before we can actually. We don't have to do
Wow.
that now,
Yeah.
right? We do have the math
Hmm.
to understand words. And that's really exciting too, because then the more people tell us, the more accurate our matching can be. And we're now at the point where we're testing things with clients, and it's a fascinating journey too, seeing what people are thinking about adopting and not. For example, we're playing with an agent, and she'll say to you, would you like to fill out a survey, or do you just want to talk to me and tell me what it is that you're wanting? Some people love that. Some people are like, that is creepy. I do not want that. Give me the survey, or, bring the people back, or I'd rather just read that. So it's interesting to see how people are engaging. And I've had some clients say to me, we are already agented out. We don't want any more agents in here. We got a ton of agents in here already. So
So
it's
they.
really, and then there's some people that won't let AI in the door. It's just a fascinating spectrum of
Mhm.
responses to the possibilities of AI, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And it also makes us think about, maybe down the road, AI needs to become as invisible as like how we experience electricity. Like it's not coming in the way. You're not seeing AI in the face, but to your point, like there's so much heavy lift that can also happen behind the scenes. Like just the matching piece alone,
Yeah.
making sense of the data that we are collecting to connect the right people at the right time with the right mentors is such a big win.
And that's really, you nailed it. Like for us, after all the analysis we've done, that back end efficiency, if you will, and effectiveness, that's the one big win that we can be sure that everybody's happy about.
That's right. And this also talks to, there's so much fear around AI coming and doing the work. But your platform is a great example of the human to human connection is still what we are trying to solve for. And we're using technology to make it a much better enhanced experience because you don't have to talk to 10 people before you land on the right person that you want to talk to and engage with. Maybe in
Exactly.
first one or two goes, you're like, yeah, there's a click and this is a great relationship and it's going to be a tremendous learning experience for both parties involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is the buzz of the work, for sure.
Yeah. So, and also, I'm really keen to hear from you and your lived experience deploying a mentorship platform into an organization beyond just the technology piece. How open or resistant organizations are to support mentorship programs in their ecosystem, especially in today's time where there's just so much noise, there's so much to be done. Like especially if this is an HR driven initiative, are they getting the traction? Is this like a uphill journey for them to sell a mentorship program in an organization? What's the sense that you're getting right now?
Sense that I'm getting right now is there is, like any other kind of initiative, if the readiness is there, it can really take off. What we seem to be seeing is there's a lot of demand for it. And the hiccup is, how do we ultimately get it in that list of priorities that the chief learning officer or, whoever is driving the bus is really holding?
Yeah,
There's typically a fair bit of demand for it. There's some interesting, machinations going on with different generations and so on. I
yeah.
think one of the things that we're really seeing is not surprising, and this is not new. It is not new for 2025 by any stretch, but people are sick of having multiple places to sign in,
Mm,
having another platform. For most companies of any size, some companies, they're like, no, you know what, we want this off to the side. We want something special. Or, we're a type of company that for whatever reason, our learning management system is something different altogether. But typically, single sign on or having some way to merge data is incredibly important. And we actually have gone to the point of, we have a number of clients where we call it matching as a service, because
mm,
they don't sign into our platform. We create a relay with an existing system, and it's they don't see our platform, or they don't know they're seeing our platform. It has to be really seamless in a lot of cases, because people are really fed up with, oh, one more place to sign in, one more
yeah,
place I got to give my info. And that's not, as I say, that's not new. That's, we're all in that boat for a number of years
yeah.
now. The other thing that is a big point of freak out for companies with mentorship and who are investing in a mentorship platform is, the reality is a mentorship program is very front end loaded. So
Mm,
a lot of the value of the platform is gathering the right data, doing the matching, exposing the match to people, and then giving them good infrastructure around how to be a good mentor, how to be a good mentee, and what should this look like. I
mm,
would say, probably in my experience, about 50% of people are off and running. They don't need scaffolding. They don't need sample agendas. They know what they want to do and they do it. And the other 50% are like, you know what? I'd actually appreciate, what should I be talking about in the first meeting, and maybe what I ought to talk about in the second meeting, and how to set a good goal. You know, that upfront piece is a huge part of the value of a mentorship platform. Where I see organizations running aground, and I do have a little nervousness that we're going to start using AI to try to solve this problem in a way that may or may not be helpful, is we want people to get back on the platform. And
mm,
believe me, I am equally as guilty in that we're on version 5 of the Pollinate platform. Version 1 was the world according to Christy, and the world according to Christy was, let's have everybody fill out an assessment after each one of their meetings.
mm,
And we're going to bug them a lot. We're going to be in their inbox all the time. They hated it. At a certain point, people want to be able to get out there and do the thing without a lot of, they'll reach for support if they need it. They'll go back on the platform and rewatch a video or download another sample agenda, but they don't want to be bugged all the time. And so, one of the things that I know from talking to clients and prospects is, there's sometimes a misgiving to say, are we really getting value out of this platform? Because there's a whole bunch of activity at the beginning, and then kind of sparse activity. They'll fill out a
mhm,
pulse check and they'll do this and that, but a bit of more sparse activity as the program evolves. In my mind, that's a fabulous opportunity to say, okay, how do we get really creative with these opportunities? Because you do want to make sure people are still engaged. That's where the HR folks get nervous, right? Is, we're not hearing from you. Does that mean things are going swimmingly and you don't need help? Or does it mean you've wandered off and you're not even doing it anymore?
mm,
So this is where we have some amazing opportunities. And again, where AI, I think, can help us to say, okay, how do we, without saying, you got to get back on the platform every time and tell us what's going on. Or, we've even seen some people going to the length of saying, you've got to use the platform for your meetings, and AI is going to summarize your meetings, which, again, to your earlier point, people are kind of creeped out. by some of that. They don't necessarily want everything that they're saying captured
Yeah.
in a recorded and shareable way. So I think these are all the interesting pieces that we're at right now is, what's the value of a mentorship platform? A lot of it is the matching, a lot of it is that upfront preparatory piece. And the rest, that story is kind of being written right now is
That
what is the value to come?
Yep, yep. And I think this is also where anchoring mentorship in things that matter most to the organization is going to be super valuable too. Like, look at transformation. Every organization is talking about transformation, which is driven by AI and other economic forces. Why don't we think about mentorship as part of change enablement in the organization? Like we talk about, let's identify change champions who are early adopters of AI and how they embed AI and AI tools into their lives. But just anchoring this whole mentorship matching to connecting the right people with who have practices to share around AI, that would be such a cool win for an
I
organization.
could not agree more.
It takes the conversation beyond, let's train everybody on AI. Like, how do you train everybody on AI? It's the lived experiences that we want to kind of cross pollinate and share across the organization so that everybody can build on to their lived experiences around, I experimented here with AI. This worked, this didn't work. Let me share that voice with people who are curious.
Yeah, otherwise we are faced with the idea that every person is going to go through all the same, falling down, standing up,
Yeah.
learning pieces. And to some degree we've got to do it on our own, but it reminds me a little bit what you're saying reminds me a little bit of working with entrepreneurs. So we have many programs at Pollinate that support entrepreneurs. We're really fortunate to be supporting a whole bunch of different programs where entrepreneurs are being matched with mentors. The whole reason you do that is to make sure that people aren't rediscovering the same thing that has been discovered by other people over and over. We have one program where,
Mhm.
before we really got ahead of it, we realized that, wow, all of these food entrepreneurs are spending the same $10,000 on market research. I wonder if there's a better way to do this, right? There's
Mhm.
maybe some knowledge sharing. And I love what you said too about part of the real benefit here and part of the discipline around it is getting really clear on the purpose and what is it you're trying to drive in terms of the vibe. What
Mhm.
vibe are you trying to create? Because that's what we've got to point this at. This has got to be very aware of the culture we're trying to build.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Do organizations also come to you that, yes, we've had this platform or platform is part of the program for X amount of time? How do we tell the success story around what benefits did the organization get by having a mentorship program, technology driven mentorship program in place? And what kind of data analytics can support that ROI conversation?
Scorecards, dashboards, etc. Again, because of our collective fixation at Pollinate around measurement and showing impact, this is a big conversation that we have. If there's living memory in the organization of trying to match people manually,
Yeah.
the business case for the technology, the matching technology is not that hard to make. We have one prospect that we've just talked to. It takes them a month to
Mm,
match everybody in a program because they're doing it, again, they're doing an amazing job, but just manually. It's super manual, and there's lots of factors to be thinking about. So there's the efficiency piece. I really like to put my scorecards into three categories. One is strategic alignment.
mhm,
So are we getting interest from the people we want to see interest from? And that's a lot on the mentor side. Are we getting the mentors signing up that we want to have signing up? Are we, driving more ability to talk about the cultural things that are important to us somehow in this? Or, the purpose of the program might have been we've got 6 new products and we need to get the salespeople feeling comfortable to sell them because they're still selling the stuff that they're comfortable with. So, how do we see that? Are we focused on the right things? The effectiveness would be the second pillar. And that comes to how quickly are we being matched? How many rematches were there? And we know from all of our experience in talking to clients who use other systems, it's not unusual for a program to see, even 15%, sometimes as high as 20% rematches. We're endeavoring to have less than 5% in all cases. We're trying for 2%.
Mhm.
And not to have a lack of flexibility, but simply because we want to hit that bullseye the first time. So looking at effectiveness in terms of, are people getting the right matches? And then those pulse checks is there value for time? That's one of the metrics that I feel is really, really important, is getting a reflection from both the mentor and the mentee. Is this time you're spending valuable? Because you
Mhm.
don't have to worry about engagement if they think the time is valuable.
Yeah.
They'll fight for that time. They
Yeah.
will find that time. It's when we're not finding a ton of value. It's like, hey, it's a good conversation and you're an interesting person, but
Mhm.
that's an hour I won't get back in my life. We don't want people feeling that way. And part of that is the match. And then the other thing are things that we've learned, like mentors don't feel as engaged if the mentee doesn't have a goal that they're working toward.
That's so true. Yeah.
Right. So we used to get earlier days before we started to be very clear about, the type of goals. And I'm not talking about a SMART goal as much as an agile goal where there's an intent and then a series of things we're going to try to make that intent come to life. But we used to get feedback from mentors to say, we had a lot of really great conversations, but I don't know if I helped them or not.
Yeah.
And that's not as engaging for the mentor. Whereas if we're able to say, hey, we have a goal, and measuring progress toward goal is a very important metric for us. Has there been progress toward the goal? And it's interesting sometimes to see what the mentor says and what the mentee says. Usually the mentors are lagging a little bit because they're not seeing and feeling everything the mentee's seeing. But that's a really important metric. And then the third pillar is that return on investment. And that takes some time.
Mhm.
But I can tell you from having had some clients who have suffered through every iteration of our platform and worked with us for, more than 10 years, that we can see that people are retained. We can see that people are more promotable. We can see, which is really meaningful for us, that diverse slates of candidates are more often considered,
Mhm.
that there is more representation in an organization. So
Mhm.
some of those return on investment things take some time to show up. But if we've got the right strategic alignment, is everybody, got a goal? Does everybody know why they're here? We've got some effectiveness, then we're likely to see when we give it a little bit of time to breathe and do its thing that we're going to have a higher intent to stay, more promotability, higher productivity. We've actually had some clients report back and say, wow, and it's kind of to what you said earlier, rather than everybody learning it themselves, falling down the same hole and having to climb back up. We had a whole bunch of people who didn't have to fall down the hole.
I also like the really important point you make around goal setting and performance, because right now our performance system or goal setting is also all over the place. But in a future state, when the world of work shifts more towards outcome based performance management, and we have things like OKRs where people are okay to work on ambitious goals and accomplish certain outcomes. How they get there and what they do is where the flexibility is. That would be so interesting to kind of match up people who are engaged in a mentorship conversation aligned to a particular objective or key results that they are trying to accomplish, and then connect it back to whether they achieved that outcome or not, or how well they achieved the outcome, or I mean, speed is not always the best measure to look at whether the outcome is achieved or not. But if that side of the equation is
Mhm.
solved for, I think mentorship programs can drive so much value in organizations.
Agreed. Agreed. And as you say, the context is important in mentoring in so many ways. Number one, what's the purpose? Why are we doing this? Is it to get faster? If it's to get faster,
Yeah.
great. Then that's the right metric. If it's to go deeper or get more effective, maybe fast isn't the thing, but competence is the thing. Often particularly, and I would say you and I have both been down this road for women entrepreneurs. Again,
Mhm.
many different programs that we've had sponsor women who are entrepreneurial or in entrepreneuring sometimes inside organizations, sometimes the entire game is building
Yeah.
confidence, right?
Yeah.
Efficacy. So knowing that I can do it.
Hmm.
So to your point, the metrics are very relative to the goals that we have.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For today's conversation, as we wrap up, if somebody's heard our conversation and they haven't tried setting up or launching a mentorship capability in their organization, what would be 2 3 things that you would give them as the foundational steps that they should think about, plan for, and act on to get a mentorship capability up and running in their organization?
Yeah, that's a great thing for us to end on. And I think that there's a couple of things, and we've talked, to some degree about each of them. The first one is, what's the purpose? And to me, it just seems obvious that you want to connect people, you want people sharing knowledge and information, you want them more engaged and so on. But what's the specific purpose that we can get at? And it's probably going to be something that you pilot. So, purpose, find a purpose for a pilot. That would be where to start. And, some organizations are ready for the big, people have been asking for this forever. We got to put it out there. But generally speaking, the way this works is you start small, and then it's a pull, not a push, because some people hear about it and say, well, wait a minute, I want that too. So I think, find a purpose and a pilot and start there. Start
Hmm.
small with a group and small can be, 50 pairs. It doesn't have to be 10 pairs, but start with a group where they're going to have some experience of success and move from there. Because again, we get into this mythology that it's very complicated. It's very hard to do. And, the mentors aren't near skilled enough. And, it's going to take away focus from other things. We've had clients that are just so paranoid about taking an hour a month of a mentor's time. Again, if it's high value, they love it. They wanna do it.
Hmm.
It's incredibly engaging for the mentor class of people in your organization too. People sometimes say, "Well, what's in it for the mentor?"
Yeah.
It's pretty rewarding when you help someone to step through some difficulties toward a goal. So
Hmm.
get that pilot group together. Find a group that you think is really gonna benefit and start with them.
Fantastic. Christy, thank you so much for such a grounded and expansive conversation. You've reminded us that mentoring isn't just a perk in an organization, it's infrastructure. We have to think about it holistically. And it's how organizations think long term and scale human connection and make the knowledge stick, which is so critical in today's day and age. So, thank you so much for your time
You're
today.
so welcome. And I love how you said it's infrastructure. That's absolutely the perfect way to think about it.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning into Tides. And if this episode sparked a new way of thinking, do share it, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for more conversations on transformation of people and work. Until next time, stay curious.